Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Muscle Building Mastery Podcast. My name's Andy Clements, and in this episode I want to talk to you a little bit about the topic of stress and how stress can be such a big and important part of building muscle, both utilising stress in the right way and managing stress when you need to sort of avoid it and minimise it in your life, right? So what I want to start with, I want to start with a little story, a little bit of a backstory about how I sort of came to realise how important stress can be to your muscle building efforts, right? So I want to take you back a few years, like 4 or 5 years. At this point, like I'd been training for some time. I'd been training for like five, maybe 6 years already. I kind of knew how to train. I was getting some kind of results already. You know, I wasn't really like ridiculously skinny. And you know, I was consistent. I knew a little bit about training, a little bit about diet. I was already starting my personal training business at this time, so I kind of knew how to help people, and I knew bits about, you know, the basics of building muscle. But I went through this kind of period of time in the gym where I used to kind of struggle for energy, right? I used to kind of struggle to get myself up for these key sets, and it wasn't that I wasn't motivated, like, because I spoke about motivation, I spoke about you know, overall energy in relation to nutrition in the past on this podcast. I can't remember what episode it was, but it'll be something about pre-workout nutrition. But this was something different. I was struggling to sort of, do you know what I mean when I say get up for sets? You know, really kind of find that different gear, flick that switch in your head where you like go from being able to have a chat with your mate to being like on that set and like nothing else matters in the world but that set. Because when you reach that sort of separate gear, you can really push forward with your strength, with your muscle building, and with your intensity in your workouts, which is so key to building real big muscle. But I just couldn't seem to find it. You know, and I could watch other people, I could watch YouTube videos, and I could watch other people in the gym, and even my training partner, and see them sort of find this separate gear in their head. And I just wondered why I couldn't do it, you know? And it was frustrating because what I wanted to increase my strength. I wanted to build my intensity in the gym, in my workouts, and I wanted to develop my muscle mass beyond what I'd already got. Because like I said, I got some, but it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to really grow, and I wanted to really build that strength and intensity and be one of the guys that were kind of like impressive in the gym. I wanted to be one of them guys that you'd look at and be like, wow, that guy trains hard. And I couldn't find that extra gear to be able to sort of produce that response from somebody straight away when they saw me training. They knew I trained hard. I trained, but I don't know if I really trained really hard. Does that make sense? So that was what I really wanted. But the biggest thing I wanted really was, the biggest thing that I was struggling with, more than the sort of external desires of building more strength and not being able to progress with my physique, was that I was just kind of a bit embarrassed that I wasn't progressing. I was a bit kind of embarrassed because I was at this point where I was like, I'd been training for a number of years already. I was already PTing people. I was already coaching people. So I was making my living out of helping people to get in better shape. You know, and I was relatively good at what I was doing, but I was kind of embarrassed about this problem that I was having because I almost took it as like a comment on my abilities as a coach, like a comment on my abilities personally. And I was just a little bit self-conscious, like almost I didn't want anybody to know I was struggling with this thing, right? So I kind of wanted to overcome that and give myself a little bit more self-confidence in my own abilities as to be able to build muscle, and also to be able to help other people build muscle, because that was what I was being paid to do already, right? So I was just a bit embarrassed about it. So I ended up, you know, not really knowing how to approach this problem. I ended up just trying to force it. So I ended up, you know, getting into the gym one day, and you know, it was like deadlift day or something, and I ended up just being like, do you know what, I'm not having this anymore. I'm just gonna I'm gonna force my strength up. That was my mentality. I was like, no, I'm not gonna be a bitch about it, right? I'm gonna force my weight up. So I started putting more weight on the bar than I was really capable of lifting, right? And this is a key lesson here. I started trying to push my weight up forcibly. So I started putting more weight than I was capable of lifting. And guess what happened? I got injured, right? I got injured, which is obvious, right? Anybody would know that would happen if you try and force your weight up before you're ready. I got injured. And I was just so frustrated by this point because I didn't know how to fix the problem I was having, and I was having this additional problem of being injured, which I had to go chiropractor. I spent time and money and efforts to be able to rehabilitate myself from that, and I felt like giving up. You know, I thought, you know, I've achieved some success. I've managed to help a few people with some basic stuff. Maybe this is as far as I'm able to go. I felt like giving up. But this injury was probably a bit of a blessing in disguise, really, because it forced me to take some time off and reevaluate everything. And I realised that the things that affect the gym, the things that affect your training, don't always happen purely in the gym. Because your body is like a whole organism, right? And it experiences life all through every aspect of your life, and any given aspect can affect your muscle building, can affect your training. Just because you separate the two in your head doesn't mean that physiologically your body is able to separate the two in reality. Does that make sense? So this is the kind of epiphany I had. I realised that the more stressed that I was outside of the gym, and this is where I'm going to bring it back to stress, right? The more stressed that I was outside of the gym, the less energy I had inside the gym. So let me say that again. So every time I went through like a bout of stress in my life, whether it was, you know, good stress or bad stress, whether it was stress to do with work, whether it was stress to do with money because I was broke, whether it was stress to do with relationships. You know, if I had a fight with my girlfriend or whatever was happening at the time, then, you know, that would obviously contribute to my stress. Whatever stress was going on, that massively contributed to a decline in the quality of my workouts. Now, some people have this backwards. Some people think, oh yeah, the gym is my therapy. The gym is how I deal with things. The gym is how I, it doesn't matter how stressed I am because I can go and take it out on the weights. It's like, yeah, okay, well that's maybe just masking the problem. But second of all, you're not going to get the best quality workouts if you're just using anger at your life as motivation, right? You're going to have a much better quality of workout if you get your life in order, and then have this really positive thing that you're doing on the side called muscle building, called physique development, whatever you want to call it, okay? So this was the kind of epiphany I had, that I had less energy to train the more stressed that I was. So what I ended up starting to do is I started to sort of cut these different stresses out of my life as much as possible. Some things you can't cut out of your life, right? But as much as possible, I started to cut these unnecessary things that I was stressing out of my life. I started to do some research on how to implement like self-care methods, like, you know, like meditation and journaling and gratitude journaling and all this kind of stuff, and like morning routines. Started getting like more into like morning routines and evening routines, looking after sleep and all the different things, right? I started doing all these different things, and by taking this time to look after myself, my results in the gym started to improve. It's a really funny thing happened. My results in the gym started to go up the more I was looking after myself as like a human organism, right? As like a living being, rather than just like being a tyrant to myself and just punishing myself every single day, like work harder, work harder, work harder. The more I took care of myself, the better my results were in the gym. So I was like, I'm onto a winner. Like, this is amazing. I've figured it out. You know, I started being able to easily lift the weights in the gym that I was trying to force myself to lift and getting injured under just a few short months earlier. Like, how amazing is that? Can you imagine that? So at that point, I decided, I was like, right, okay, I made this plan to sort of push as hard as I possibly could all the time in the gym, and then rest as hard as I possibly could all the time out of the gym, as much as possible, right? Because sometimes you've got to work and sometimes you've got to do things, and But you know, in general, I was like, right, I'm going to rest as hard as I can. I'm going to really take care of myself. But then when I'm in the gym, it's go time. Every single day, it's go time, go time, go time, go time. And I was like, right, okay, I'm going to keep repeating this process until I'm massive. Okay, I'm going to keep repeating this process over and over and over and over again. And for a time, it started to work. It started to work. Like I say, I started to stack the weight on the bar. I started reaching PBs. I started getting bigger. My scale weight went up. And all these different things started happening. But at that point, maybe after 2 or 3 months, things started to you know, I started hitting this bit of a wall. Things started to go south again. And I realised that life still kind of happens, right? You can't just have these two priorities forever. You can do it for a time, sure you can, it works for a time. But life still happens, and you still have other priorities, and you still have other things to deal with, and your body can only take so much punishment, right? So I was like, my body can only take so much punishment, and I ended up figuring out that depending on how much stress I had in my life at any given time, between 6 and 8 weeks, I was starting to get injured. I was starting to pick up these little niggly injuries that I would have to go see the chiropractor, right? And it would always be the same, and then I'd be out of action for a few days or a week, and then I'd be able to go, and I'd be, you know, doing my plan again. I'd be doing my pushing as hard as I could in the gym, resting as hard as I could, pushing as hard as I could, resting as hard as I could, which in general is a great plan. And you know, I'd get to these, you know, depending on what I had on, the 6, 7, 8, sometimes 9 week if I was really lucky mark, and then like clockwork, I'd get injured again. You know, or I'd start burning out, or I'd stop being able to push as hard. You know, something would happen that would stop me in my tracks. And I was like, oh my God, like, why does this keep happening? And what I realised was that you can't push all the time. You can't push all the time. Muscle building and strength building doesn't happen linear. It doesn't happen in like this straight line, this straight curvature up. If you're on like a graph, it doesn't go straight up. It is cyclical in nature, which means that you kind of get up, you kind of go you see a peak and a spike in your results, and then you might see a little drop off, and then you might go up again, a little drop off, little up again, right? So you've got to be okay with that, and you've got to work with that, not against that. You can't try and push through it, because there was a lot of times where I tried to push through them injuries. I'm like, keep going, keep going, keep going, and I ended up burning out. And that comes with all sorts of different complications for health and for your muscle building and all sorts of stuff, and your strength goes down and everything just goes to pot, right? So what I ended up doing was devising this sort of plan. It's like, right, okay, between 6 and 8 weeks, depending on how I feel. Sometimes if I've got a lot of stress on, I've had a really hard training program, I'm gonna go for 6 weeks. And sometimes if I've got not as much stress on and I'm feeling great on my training program, I might push towards 8 weeks, 7, 8 weeks, right? But every single time without fail, I've done this ever since for the last maybe 3 years solid. I've never not stuck to this approach. I've done what's called a deload phase every 6 to 8 weeks. Now, a deload is kind of like just backing off a little bit, right? It's kind of like just giving your body like a pause just to be able to recover, right, and take a breath, instead of you pushing through that phase and trying to just keep going and keep pushing hard and all the rest of it, and ended up injured, ended up burnt out like I was, right? So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up pushing hard, you know, implementing that plan that I devised, which was push as hard as you can in the gym, rest as hard as you can out of the gym, and then when I got to the 6 to 8 week mark, I was just kind of like, right, okay, take a breather. So either take a week completely off the gym, or just do like a 50% intensity. So, you know, drop your weights right back and just move and just get some blood moving around your muscles and all that kind of stuff. And that really helped. That was amazing. That really helped. And I stopped getting injured. My weight started going up more consistently. I'm not going to lie to you, not all the time, because no one's ever going to constantly, every single time they go into the gym, progress their lifts. It's not going to happen, right? But much more consistently, I was progressing my lifts, and over the course of months and years, like, my strength and my physique was unrecognisable. It was incredible. I was like, wow, this is unreal. Just following this plan, like, work as hard as you can in the gym, rest as hard as you can out of the gym, take a break every 6 to 8 weeks, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, keep going. You know, does that make sense? So it was awesome. I felt amazing. I was really, really happy, and my confidence grew so much because of that. I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I wasn't embarrassed about this problem I was having. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I was telling people about it. I was like that story I'm telling now. I was telling people, like, look, I was having this problem, this is what I did to solve it, and they were like, oh my god, that's so cool. So I used to sort of help them implement this kind of thing in their own training, and I saw the same results with those guys. Those guys are like, wow, this is amazing, like, I'm getting really, really strong, everything's going really great. And I was able to, you know, not only help myself overcome my sticking points, but help other people overcome their sticking points, and help other people overcome their confidence issues as well. Because I was able to take these guys who were having a bit of, you know, they wouldn't openly admit it, but they were having a bit of body confidence issues, and they didn't like to wear the tight-fitting clothes, and they didn't like to go out on the nights out, and they didn't like to approach women and all that sort of stuff. And I was able to help them overcome their confidence issues as well, and get themselves out there, which was really a lot more meaningful, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of the that's how I discovered the importance of stress and really looking after yourself, and making sure that you're not just focusing on the gym part, you're focusing on the life part as well, because the life part feeds into the gym part, because obviously the gym's part of life, right? So that's kind of how I came to understand how important stress is. So if there's one takeaway I want you guys to really take from this episode, it's that the more stressed you are, and the more taxing your general life is without you taking any measures to prevent it, or to manage it, or to look after yourself, the less energy you will have in the gym, because you've only got like a certain pot of resources available to you every day, right? You've got this certain finite, limited amount of resources available to you in form of energy, or whatever else you want to call it, every single day. And everything that you do, every stress that you have, is going to come in and take some of those resources away, and by the end of it, you've only got a certain amount left to train with. And if you've taken too much of those resources away, and you don't have enough to train with, your workouts are going to suck, right? So what I want you to remember is that, you know, if you can just manage that stress and take less of those resources away, you're going to have much more to plow into your workouts, so you're going to be able to build your strength, muscle and physique faster, much faster. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to cut this one short now because we've been going for nearly 20 minutes, so it's quite a long one, but I hope that made sense. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please leave me a review. Let me know what you think on Spotify or iTunes. Drop a comment in the YouTube comment section if you're watching this on video, and don't forget to subscribe, follow, and I'll see you next time for the next episode of the Muscle Building Mastery Podcast. Cheers, guys.